Hello everyone. Let us discuss Netflix India ITAT judgment in detail. The Mumbai ITAT has struck down a tax demand exceeding INR 4 billion, emphasizing the importance of accurately delineating function, asset and risk and DEMPE analysis. The ITAT held that mere possession of logistical equipment and performing limited functions like promotion, distribution of access, invoicing, local customer support, and regulatory compliance does not render the SSE a content entrepreneur, thereby rejecting the recharacterization as content entrepreneur and affirming the SSE's position as a limited risk distributor. Let us discuss the background of the case. Netflix Incorporation, a US based company, owns and operates one of the world's leading subscription based streaming platform by the name of Netflix. Netflix US has invested extensively in its content, technology, infrastructure, and intellectual property, which is fully owned by Netflix US. The subscribers are granted only a limited personal, non exclusive right to view content with no transfer of ownership or intellectual property rights. For its operations outside US, Netflix US granted a license to distribute access to Netflix platform to its associate enterprise, namely Netflix India. As per the distribution agreement, the SSE was a limited risk distributor of access to Netflix service, that is global video on demand service, that is delivered through streaming over the internet for personal use. In this capacity, Netflix India's function, asset and risk profile was as follows. Functions. The SSE was engaged in routine functions like soliciting and promoting subscription, entering into the terms of use directly with Indian subscribers, invoicing and collecting fees, arranging for customer support, licensing with internet service providers, and handling local compliance and permits. Further, with respect to licensing with internet service providers, the SSE was also responsible for procuring and transferring open connect, also known as OCAs, that are specialized cache devices used to reduce network congestion for internet service providers. Assets. Netflix India did not own any intellectual property and performed no development, enhancement, maintenance, protection, and exploitation functions, popularly known as DEMPE. Further, the OCAs and network gear owned by the SSE comprised of less than 10% value of total tangible assets. Risk. Netflix India only bore limited operational risk and all the critical entrepreneurial service liability and investment risks were assumed by Netflix US. For providing the above services, Netflix India was earning a fixed markup on sales, which was appropriately benchmarked using the transactional net margin method. Now let us discuss the viewpoint of revenue. The transfer pricing officer and the DRP interpreted the distribution agreement in a different light. They held that the SSE was not merely distributing the access to the Netflix service but was effectively licensing Netflix content and technology, thereby functioning as an intellectual property licensee. This conclusion was based on the premise that copies of the content stored on the OCAs formed the backbone of the Netflix platform, exposing the SSE to investment risk and positioning it as a content entrepreneur. Based on this interpretation, the tax authorities assessed that Netflix India should receive a larger share of subscription profit from Indian users rather than a fixed limited margin, and should also pay royalty for obtaining the license from Netflix US. Therefore, the transfer pricing officer and DRP rejected the benchmarking methodology adopted by the SSE and proceeded to apply other method to arrive at an upward TP adjustment of INR 4.43 billion. If you are with me till now, let us now discuss ITAT findings. The ITAT began by examining the contractual framework to accurately delineate the SSE FAR profile. The ITAT, after perusing the distribution agreement and terms of use, held that the SSE held no right, title, or license in content or technology wherever transferred to the SSE. Therefore, Netflix India only acted as a distributor of Netflix services in India. Further, ITAT noted that since Netflix India, having no copyright in itself, could transfer none to others. Therefore, no royalty or license fee was payable by Netflix India to Netflix US, either in substance or in form. With respect to the OCS, the ITAT held that OCS are cache devices placed at Internet Service Provider nodes that store temporary data copies to optimize bandwidth. These devices do not hold customer data or run playback and recommendation logic, as these functions are operated by Netflix US on servers outside of India. Therefore, OCS serve as mirror cache similar to logistical warehouses that enhance delivery efficiency rather than creating value. The ITAT further held that the SSE did not own any valuable intangible assets and did not take any DEMPE functions. Additionally, with respect to the recharacterization of the transaction, ITAT held that recharacterization of a transaction is impermissible unless the arrangement is shown as a sham or colorable device. In the present case, Netflix India's role was only operational and not entrepreneurial. All the intellectual property rights solely rested with Netflix US. Regarding the use of other method by the TPO and DRP, ITAT held that residuary other method under Section 92C of the Act and Rule 10AB is a safeguard against arbitrary attribution of income and may only be invoked where none of the prescribed methods can reasonably apply. Thus, the use of transactional net margin method by the SSE was upheld by the ITAT. So, what are the key takeaways? Emphasizing the core principle of transfer pricing, the ITAT reaffirmed that arm's length price must be determined in accordance with genuine function, asset and risk analysis and objective comparability. The ruling also provides much needed clarity that merely hosting infrastructure like caching servers or having a user base in India does not by itself constitute economic ownership of intellectual property or justify attribution of significant profit to local entity. Thus, the ruling provides a major boost to the foreign investor confidence, assuring multinational digital OTT and e-commerce platforms that genuine limited risk distributor or support service models will be respected and not reclassified into high risk entrepreneurial roles in India. Thank you.